This video is all about how to reduce your emotional vulnerability. So I'm sure we've all had days where we've slept badly and we've missed breakfast and our kids are whining and we get stuck in traffic, and all of those things kind of build up, and it means that when something small happens during our day, we can perhaps end up overreacting to it in a way that we wouldn't normally. So we might burst into tears over something going wrong, or we might snap at someone if we feel that they're doing something irritating, or that sort of thing. We're less able to deal with those difficult situations in a way that is probably effective. So in DBT we use what we call the ABC please skills to try and reduce our emotional vulnerability. And I'll go through each of those. So starting with A, it's for accumulating positive events. So this is about trying to have little things that you do each day that you find enjoyable. So trying to plan positive activities into your life. So it might be hard to start this initially if you are perhaps struggling with low mood and you just feel like staying in bed all day. It might take quite a lot of work to get started with perhaps doing some drawing or playing piano, or doing something sort of social, or reading a book or watching a film or listening to music. Sometimes it can take a while to generate those ideas, and it can also take a while to kind of get started with actually doing them. A lot of the time we feel like we can't do an activity until the motivation kicks in, when actually the research shows that actually it's the opposite, that sometimes you have to force yourself to start doing an activity before the motivation then kicks in. So for example, I often have to force myself to start playing piano, and it's only once I start playing that I then actually start to enjoy it and start to feel more motivated to play it for longer and that sort of thing. So sometimes it can take a lot of work to get started, and you won't notice often an immediate change. You might have to do the activity a few times before you start to enjoy it, and it will be generally what we call an accumulation of positive events that actually helps you. So a one-off activity isn't likely to make a difference, whereas if you're doing something every day, that's when it improves your mood and builds up your resilience. So have a go at trying to build in some of those activities. I have included a list in the worksheet linked below, which has a whole bunch of suggestions, and you can try and set an alarm on your phone each day to remind you, or have a set time that you do it, or try and do it with someone so that you're kind of more accountable, and that sort of thing. So try and build it into your routine. We do find that, whilst the short-term activities are really, really useful, it's also really beneficial to think about your sort of longer term goals and values. So we get people to think about what values are important to them, and that might be that you value compassion or honesty or productivity, or some social things. So trying to work out what you value, and then thinking about what goals you can set that are in line with those values, and then plan small steps towards them. So if your value is about healthy living, you might set a goal of trying to exercise 5 times a week, and you might take small steps towards that by firstly just getting out your walking shoes or running shoes, or just messaging someone to ask whether they would like to go for a regular walk with you, or looking up workout videos, or finding out if you have a gym nearby. All of those things are very small steps that you can do towards your goal, and that's in line with your values. So we try and get people, as well as doing just brief daily positive activities, to also think about sort of in the longer term what's important to them and how can they build a life worth living, something that's full of meaning and enjoyment, and things that are important to them. So there are worksheets linked below that have example values and how to do that. So that's the A part of ABC Please. The B is about building mastery, which is about having daily activities that give you a sense of achievement. So you want to pick something that is slightly challenging but not too overwhelming to try and do each day. So it might be playing an instrument, it might be learning to draw, or learning to solve a Rubik's Cube, or it might be going out somewhere that you are perhaps feeling a bit anxious about. It might be attending therapy, that can be a form of mastery as well, or learning new coping skills, learning any of the skills on this YouTube channel would count as your mastery activity. But trying to do something that gives you a sense of achievement, because that then builds up your confidence and your ability to cope with difficult situations in the future. So trying to have both pleasure and mastery each day. The C part of the ABC Please skills stands for Cope Ahead Plans, which is about thinking in advance what difficult situations you have coming up and trying to plan what skills you would use to manage that situation. And it might be something like a doctor's appointment, an interview, seeing family who perhaps you don't get on with. It might be going out somewhere that you don't normally go. Just thinking in advance, okay, am I likely to find that situation difficult? And if so, what skills can I use before the situation to prepare myself, during the situation to kind of cope with it, and then after the situation if I'm perhaps feeling distressed. And you can use any of the skills from DBT, but you can also use other coping skills. For example, you might say, I'm going to walk there whilst listening to music because I find it relaxing. I'm going to have a fidget toy in my pocket to use if I'm feeling restless. I'm going to make an excuse to go to the bathroom if I'm feeling overwhelmed, and whilst in the bathroom I will use parts of my tip skill, or a breathing exercise, or I'll phone someone who's likely to be supportive. And you might decide that, okay, after the situation, that you might decide that you need to use distraction or self-soothing or that sort of thing. So trying to have a really clear plan, and also trying to rehearse it in your head as much as possible before the situation actually happens, because the research shows that the more that you rehearse it, the more likely you are to actually then do it in real life. So that's the ABC part. And then the Please skill is all about your physical health. So P and L stand for physical illness, so try and make sure that if you have any physical health problems, you are getting medical attention for it, you are taking medication as prescribed and that sort of thing. The E part is your eating, so trying to eat a regular balanced diet, and you might need to get support from services for that if you have disordered eating. The A is for avoiding mood altering substances, so drugs and alcohol, try and avoid as much as possible. They might give short-term relief, but in the longer term they tend to make your mental health worse. S is for sleep, so trying to follow good sleep hygiene and a good routine to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. I will do a whole separate video on that at some point, and seek advice from your GP or your psychiatrist if you think that your medication is affecting your sleep. And then the final one, E, is for exercise, so trying to make sure that each day you do some form of exercise, ideally building up to at least 20 minutes a day. And it doesn't have to mean going for a run. You can take your kids to the park, you can dance around the house, anything that is some form of activity, because we know that physical activity is hugely beneficial for your physical health and your mental health. It causes your body to release a lot of chemicals that actually make you feel better in terms of your mood. So that's the ABC Please skill, and I will obviously have the worksheet link below if you want any more sort of guidance on it as well. So I hope you found that helpful, and that you managed to schedule in some pleasurable and mastery activities.